Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Echo Wirm Live. This is what is typically a bi-weekly live stream that we try to do every other Thursday. Today's a little differently. It's a little later than we usually do it, and we did in fact have one last week. But obviously you see behind me, things are changing pretty significantly in my life and around me. I mentioned last week, I moved out of my original studio, my old house. We moved across town, and so slowly but surely the new studio is coming into effect. Over in that direction, my entire bookshelf is up pretty much in full. Next live stream, I'll turn the camera around and show you guys. So exciting things happening, but as things are continuing to develop here, I kind of miss the interaction that I typically have with you guys and wanted to have another live stream this week to talk about just some things going on with the channel and things coming up soon on the channel. We'll talk about new books and new just shows and things that correlate to the books that we read on the channel coming up very, very soon. So as always, if you guys have any questions that you want answered, feel free to drop them in the live chat. Of course, if you guys are watching this after the fact and don't have access to the live chat, please do drop those in the comment section below. We always pick up on comments that were left from the previous live stream. If you're here in the chat, I always like to know where in the world you guys are listening from, if that's something you are comfortable sharing. That can be as simple as telling me which country you guys are from. I love knowing my demographics. I'm a super kind of a geography nerd. So that's always a curiosity of mine, if you guys are willing to share that. Otherwise, with that being said, I want to take a look at the chat here, see what's going on. iDubbbz Jr. is asking, what happened to the full books on YouTube? So the original channel, Echo Wirm, no longer exists on YouTube. Obviously, this is being streamed from Echo Wirm Audiobooks. And slowly but surely, our books are being uploaded back to YouTube. There are some that we can't have. Obviously, Diary of a Wimpy Kid is the one that got us in trouble. So Diary of a Wimpy Kid will no longer be on YouTube. But the Rick Riordan stuff is coming back, is already up all the way through Son of Neptune. We're going pretty much in chronological order. So you guys can find it in the playlist on this channel, and it'll send you to another channel. Typically about 10 chapters a day are being uploaded over there on a channel called Echo Wirm Rick Riordan. You can also just look up Echo Wirm and a specific book that you might be looking for. You might find it on YouTube, you might not. Otherwise, feel free to check the links in our channel bio. There's a Patreon link and a Vimeo link, as well as a Discord link if you guys want to join the conversations after the live stream. But of course, all of that is available for free. There is content in advance of being free out on Patreon and Vimeo, but everything is available to you guys pretty much for free over on Patreon and Vimeo. So go check those out if you haven't already. Log is checking in from Virginia. Nice to see you guys. Thank you all for being in the chat here. Feel free to ask any questions that you guys like. I'm going to go through some pre-prepared questions that were asked over on YouTube. First question is coming from Yasin Yaffe, who says, are you ever going to finish reading Fablehaven, and are you going to start the Dragon Watch or the Beyonders? Probably not to Dragon Watch and the Beyonders. At the moment, I'm not really taking additional requests simply because my backlog is really, really extensive, and I'm struggling to keep up with just the pace of all the stuff that we've started on the channel already. But in terms of Fablehaven, I have started the third book. I don't know when it'll be up on the channel, probably around Christmas time, but the first two books are already up over on Patreon and Vimeo. The third book should be coming up, like I said, in the next few months here. Let's go to another question from Eldritch Hungry, who says, out of curiosity, did your Percy Jackson videos get claimed? I can't find them here anymore. No, Percy Jackson did not get claimed. So if you want to check them out, they're still available in the playlist labeled Camp Half-Blood Chronicles. Of course, now they are in chapter form for a variety of different reasons, but you should be able to find them all the way, like I said, through Son of Neptune, and then the book beyond Son of Neptune is the Demigod Diaries. So eventually we'll have all of Rick Riordan's stuff there, including the daily chapters of Magnus Chase, starting with book 2. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm watching the Eagles-Cowboys game right behind my camera. But that is where you can find all of Rick Riordan's stuff, typically about 10 chapters a day until we reach everything, pretty much. Log says, hey Ty, subbed on Patreon. Sorry about all those videos getting taken down. I suggested Keeper of the Lost Cities. Have you looked into it? Yes, I'm about halfway through Keeper of the Lost Cities. It will be the next full book that comes out over on Patreon and Vimeo. So slowly but surely that will be finishing. It's taken me a while simply because of the move, but yes, Keeper of the Lost Cities will be the next book that comes out on Patreon and Vimeo. iDubbbz Jr. says, thank you for putting out full books in the past. I work and I got 10-hour shifts, so it's nice that I can download. If you guys want downloadable versions for everything, that is available to all of my paying members on Patreon. I have a Google Drive filled with pretty much all of our, like, Dune is not available, but all of the Percy Jackson books are. Anything that I can basically fit into an under 15-hour audio form are available for download over on Patreon. Just reach out to me through DMs over on Patreon. If you don't know how to do that, just drop it in the general chat and I'll reach out to you directly. But that is available for anyone over on Patreon. Let's see here. Someone's asking, did you remove the stream that you had after the channel was terminated? I think it was an unlisted stream. I'm sure it still exists somewhere, but sometimes I save streams, sometimes I don't. Let's go to another pre-prepared question. This one comes from Addie Reads a Lot, who asks, can you do Diamond in the Rough by Jaden Thompson, please? I can maybe add it to my list, but it's not coming anytime soon. I think that's the first time that's been suggested, and my list is really, really long at the moment, so. Uvi Views is asking, what happened to your other Percy Jackson audiobooks? They should all, like I said, be in the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles playlist, so feel free to check it out in the playlist section of the channel. Is Maze Runner coming soon to Patreon? Maze Runner should already be out on Patreon. Scorch Trials is currently airing daily chapters over on Patreon, but Maze Runner, the first book in the series, is already available in full over on Patreon and Vimeo. Jaden says, hey Echo, the chapter form is so good. Thank you. It makes it easier to find specific parts. I've heard positives and negatives from both people. If you guys have been following me long enough, this is almost it's over 2 years ago now. But when I started doing audiobooks, I started with chapter forms. And then I decided to make them into full form audiobooks. And some people were angry that we went to full form and didn't have the chapters. And then when I went back now, it's a little different. So yeah, hopefully you guys are adjusting. Like I said, the full versions are available on Patreon and Vimeo, but chapter versions are available still using the playlist below. Let's go to another question. This one is from Takaya TikTok says, I know I asked before, but I can't find the Sun and the Star video. The one where Will and Nico are the main characters. Yeah, like I said, those are slowly coming back up to YouTube. You should be able to find, I want to say, at least the first chapter of The Sun and the Star. I'm slowly going to be working my way to The Sun and Star early because of the fact that book 2 is coming out soon. So what we're going to do with book 2 of the Nico D'Angelo Adventures is coming out on the 23rd, which, if I'm doing the math correctly, is 3 weeks from this past Tuesday. So we're less than 2 weeks away, or we're less than 3 weeks away from The Sun and the Star book 2, which is called The Court of the Dead. And when that comes out on the 23rd, what I'm going to do is do a chapter on YouTube every day and do 2 chapters on Patreon every day. That way Patreon has a little bit of a buffer zone if people want to join over there. Just helps me out personally. Xpogo Sam says, my broken rib and I are in attendance. Give Sam some love in the chat. Sam got in a pretty rough situation last week, so thoughts with you, Sam. How can you find time for multiple jobs, hobbies, and your family? What is your secret? My secret is I never stop. Is kind of the key. That's a really... Sorry, I got distracted by the game again. There's a weather delay in the Philadelphia game because there's lightning, I guess. My secret is I really just never stop. I'm constantly working. I have a full-time job, which in the United States, a full-time job is 40 hours. I typically work about 60 hours a week, which means that I have my full-time job, and then I have a couple different side jobs or volunteer jobs that I do around. And then, of course, I have the YouTube stuff and the audiobooks, and then I have my writing time. So I am writing 2 books at the moment. I've already written a book that you can find on the channel. We'll talk about that more in a sec. If you guys have questions on the radiation effect or Eric Schwabington, I'm always happy to talk about my own stuff in the comments below too. But yeah, my secret is I just don't really stop. I'm not a person who has a ton of energy. I do sleep pretty heavily into the morning. But yeah, you just never really quit, which has its positives and negatives. Disciple of Lord Dionysus says, have you seen season 2 of Wednesday? It's really good. I have not yet. I've seen season 1 of Wednesday. Xpogo Sam says, greatly appreciate it. Chapter 1 of Homeland Security is holding me together at the moment. I'm currently working on Chapter 2. My plan, and like I said, this is a plan. This doesn't necessarily mean that it will be the case. But my plan is to basically have a chapter of the radiation effect available every 3 weeks, and then a chapter of Eric Schwabington every 2 weeks. And there will be weeks that I'm going to give myself a little bit of a buffer. But the first chapter of the radiation effect is out on Patreon, and the first 2 chapters of Eric Schwabington are also available on Patreon as well. So stay tuned for those. I'm very, very excited about book 2 of the radiation effect. I've been working on chapter 2 today, and there's a couple different... I'm trying not to spoil too much too early, but the way that I write is typically organic to conversations, and if conversations go in that direction, then sometimes I do end up spoiling things too early and having to change the way that I address like the plots of my books, if that makes any sense. It'll make more sense when you read chapter 2, but yeah, there's a pretty significant interaction that happens at the beginning of chapter 2. Jorge Banuelos says, just joined, so I don't know if you answered this already. Are you still considering the City of Bones? I know I asked a while back, but I would love to see if there's any update. I don't have any update. It is still on my list, and it's fairly high on my list, but I don't necessarily know what that means. I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of books on my list at the moment. I did buy it, so that's a positive step. Hopefully in the next month I start it. Xpogo Sam says, what changes, if any, will be made to the character formerly known as Jordan in Book 1 to integrate the change? Good question. So in my first draft, the one that is available on the channel of the radiation effect, there's a character named Jordan. And I, for a very, very bizarre real-world coincidence, I am deciding to change that character's name out of respect for someone very, very close to me. Because the plot line in the book and something that happened in real life ended up coinciding really, really bizarrely. And so I'll be changing the character's name to Wyatt. Now, in terms of the plot of that character, at the moment, I don't have any plans to significantly change what happened to that character or how we got to that point, except I may make it a little more subtle. There are things that maybe for the audience I'm looking for, I want to kind of bring things back a little bit, make them less out in the open, make them less obvious, especially given the ages of the characters, but still be able to have that gut punch of the plot twist in chapter 27 or 28 that it occurs in. But I think for the most part, I'm still very set on what happens. If for whatever reason I came across a situation where that plot line specifically was too uncomfortable for my readers, and looking back on it, I do have some contingency plans to maybe change what happens. There are some directions that I could go with that character that are different than what actually happened, but the ending of that character would still be the same, if that makes any sense. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't read it yet necessarily. Vlixm says, will you make the Heroes of Olympus? I have already done all of the Heroes of Olympus books. So the first 2 books are available in the playlist at the moment. The other ones will be slowly uploaded to the channel. But all of them should be available on Patreon and Vimeo if you want to go check them out there. Sino says, hey, what have I missed? I don't know. It depends when last you asked. Xpogo Sam says, also, why Wyatt? It doesn't seem like a name befitting to a French last name to me. I do agree on toning down some of that for the character ages. Yeah, good question. And I'm not necessarily set on Wyatt. For whatever reason, that is always the backup name that I had. You're right, it doesn't necessarily come across as French, and I think that could play into an interesting part of his background. Because so far as like, we don't know that his biological parents are even French. That's just what he grew up with. And we could come across a situation where he had that name before and his adoptive parents decided to keep it. I don't know. Where did Wyatt come from is a good question. I don't actually know. For the life of me, I can't remember where that came from in terms of story writing. But yeah, it's not set in stone, but I think I'm more solidified on it than any other name. Have you heard a theory that J.K. Rowling based Harry Potter on the New Testament? Do you see it as a Christian novel? I think actually, I wrote a huge essay on it one time, like a 10-chapter essay on it. Eventually, I may turn it into an audiobook. But I don't think it's based on the New Testament by any means, but there are a lot of religious themes in it. I think it's very funny that for the longest time, especially on like the Protestant side of things, Harry Potter has been seen as anti-Christian. I think the more I read it, and even read the Bible more, there's so much in Harry Potter that is rooted in Christianity. The reflections of the Trinity with the three different mentors and the Deathly Hallows and a ton of different stuff. The magic system in Harry Potter is not in its own right an evil thing. And I think that's where the divide comes, because biblically, sorcery itself and people who use magic are to be shunned off. That is biblical in both the Old and New Testaments. But I think it's interesting that the power system that exists in Harry Potter, the things that specifically when you look at the New Testament and what it is saying about magic and the evils of magic, all of that exists in what Voldemort is doing. And so I think there's a lot of parallels and crossovers there. Like I said, I wouldn't say it's a Christian book by any means, but I think there's a lot of parallels there. I think it's very allegorical for Christianity. Yasin Yafi says, I'm back in my normal account. What have I missed in the past 15 minutes? I don't think much. We went over a couple of questions, so if you want to rewind, you're more than welcome to, but feel free to ask anything you're curious about in the chat below. Disciple of Lord Dionysus says, what is your favorite mythology race? Mythology race and creatures are not the same thing. Mine are Dullahan and Gorgons. I guess I don't really know the difference between a race and a species of creatures when it comes to mythology. The 100-handed ones, if they're considered a race of being, I guess, I think are really interesting. Vlixem says, I like the new background. Thank you very much. I am slowly figuring out how to use my color-changing lights. But yeah, I'm really satisfied with how soundproof this room has gotten, even so far. Kibium Paul Nam says, where are your other Percy Jackson readings? I mentioned you can find them still in the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles playlist. They're just in chapter form now. Willie Weiger says, drop the link to your Patreon. It is available in the channel description. It's also easy to find. It's just patreon.com/echoworm. If I go like this, there it is at the bottom of the screen. Carlito's Corner says, how do you feel about your football teams after week 1? I'm assuming you're talking about college because my football team professionally has not played yet. I mentioned in last week's live stream, I'm a Texas Longhorns fan when it comes to college. Obviously, they lost. They didn't look great on offense. I thought their defense looked fantastic. They gave up 14 points against the defending champions. The team played fine. I mean, they obviously lost, but I did not expect to win that game. Vlixam says, do you read the Hunger Games books? I have read all 5, yes. They are available over on Patreon and Vimeo for free. All 5 books. April Moody says, where did your Son of Neptune book go? You should be able to find it at the very bottom of the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles playlist. Xpogo Sam says, r/Harry Potter has sort of made me realize that a load of plot points fall apart under examination. For example, Umbridge was kind of right. Hogwarts was a total mess. Yeah, I don't know that I'd use that example, but one channel that I listen to that has pointed out a lot of just very interesting plot choices and ways that the book was written is Vault. Good luck finding the channel. But there's a channel called Vault, and if you look up Harry Potter Theory Vault, you might be able to find the channel. But he does a fantastic job of just digging into Harry Potter loopholes and theories and things like that. That, yeah, for the most part, I would agree with. Kronk's Reptile says, what happened to the last 2 Heroes of Olympus books? They should be coming up very, very soon. Each Heroes of Olympus book is about 70 chapters, 60 to 70 chapters long. So give it a week and all of them should be there. Disciple of Lord Dionysus says, mythology race are more humanoid and mythology creatures are more beast. Yeah, I would say if the 100-handed ones count as a race, that would be mine. Yasin Yafi says, I saw that you stopped reading Fablehaven a while back. Are you ever going to finish this series? I never stopped reading Fablehaven. I just haven't continued as fast as maybe most people would like, simply because I can't have them on YouTube. But yes, my intention is, I have started the 3rd book, so my intention is hopefully by Christmas we can get the 3rd book up. Joey Jar says, my jaw dropped when I saw you had Book of Mormon videos. I hadn't thought of, but that's cool. Scrolled up to see Book of Mormon audiobooks. Are you a member of the church too? I'm not a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints. I pretty openly Christian. I don't really try to do anything to make this channel feel like you guys need to listen to religious audiobooks. But no, I'm not a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, but I am a Christian. Awesomely Simple says, is there anywhere to download the audiobooks? I listen to these during work and I don't have a signal to listen. I mentioned this earlier in the live stream, but all of the at least shorter form audiobooks, and what I mean by that is pretty much if it's less than like 800 pages, I do have downloadable versions for most of my audiobooks. So like all of Rick Riordan's books, all of the Harry Potter books, Maze Runner, Hunger Games, all of that, I do have downloadable versions for my members over on Patreon. So if you want to join over on Patreon and just drop me a DM in the on the app, you can message me directly. You can reach out on Discord. I have not been very good at reading my DMs over on Discord lately, simply because I've been so busy with everything. But if that's something that you're interested in, you guys can reach out to me and I'll give you access. Xpogo Sam says, +1 for more Fablehaven and Artemis Fowl. Such nostalgic books for me. Also, remind me if Looking for Alaska is on your list somewhere. It is. It's not very high. Artemis Fowl should be starting. The 3rd book I am starting tonight, actually, after the live stream. I've never read it. I can't remember what it's called. The Opal Deception? Where is it on my thing here? No, the Eternity Code is 3rd. Opal Deception's 4. Jorge Banuelos says, how many books do you read a day with everything that you do? I average about 3 chapters a day. That's average. There are some days where I do like 6. VPro says, why did you remove the Kane Chronicles? They should be coming up very shortly. On YouTube, at least, over on the Echo Worm Rick Riordan channel, but you can still find them for free on Patreon and Vimeo. Xpogo Sam says, have you ever been recognized in public for your audiobook stuff or ran into someone that knew about your work prior to meeting you? No to the second question. I have been recognized for my audiobook stuff in public simply because my coworkers found out about it, which is always interesting. I don't know. Not that it's just always weird when two sides of your world kind of intermingle. But yeah, so I have been recognized before. Blixem says, what is your favorite book at the moment? At the moment is a good question. What is a book I have really enjoyed reading recently? That is a good question. You know, typically my answer to my favorite book is Storm of Swords, but I think recently it's been Fire and Blood, simply because I am super into world building, and Fire and Blood is like everything I love about the A Song of Ice and Fire universe in a fake history book. It's very interesting. It's not a book you'd want to read necessarily unless you were really into the story to begin with. Yasin Yafi says, I've asked you this before, but I forgot what you had said. What are you planning to read after you're done with all of the Percy Jackson books and the rest of the Percy Jackson universe? Well, let me pull up my handy-dandy spreadsheet real quick, and I'll tell you what's coming up on the channel. So, at the moment, I'm trying to find where we are in terms of coming out on the channel. Coming up next is Keeper of the Lost Cities. It was originally scheduled to be out in August, but of course, with everything with the move, things got delayed. So at the moment, I have no really timeline for when things are planning on coming out at the moment. But Keeper of the Lost Cities is next. Children of Dune, the entirety of it, the second half of it, will be up after that. Then Scent, which is the second book in the Missing series by Margaret Peterson Haddix. The first book is called Found. Then doing some of the Percy Jackson side books like Greek Gods, Greek Heroes, the Brooklyn House Magician's Manual. I also just bought the Magnus Chase ones. There's 2 of those as well. After that, book 2 of City of Ember, The People of Sparks, and then, looking here, Camp Half-Blood Confidential, book 4 of A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Miserable Mill, should be coming out sometime in November. Eternity Code, like we mentioned, Artemis Fowl, and then Fablehaven book 3, work our way through the Inheritance Cycle, Magnus Chase. What else are we missing? The Maze Runner and the Divergent series will finish up shortly after that as well. And then things are kind of up in the air. This sounds really stupid. The most requested book that I have not yet got to is Twilight. And typically I'd say I'm going to push this even more off, but my wife's been asking for it fairly significantly. So I honestly think, to answer your question, after we're done with all of our additional series, I will probably end up doing Twilight. Finish the Missing series, like I said. House of Cards, the book, more a series of unfortunate events. Slowly work our way through A Song of Ice and Fire. And then after that, probably the Arc of a Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. Or the Toll series, as some people know it as. Dune will continue, probably. There's a lot of requests for Dune as well. And then beyond that, I have no idea. So to answer your questions with 3, probably the Scythe books, the finished Dune, and Twilight. And then somewhere in there also do, like I said, Keeper of the Lost Cities and Red Rising. Expogo Sam says, same happened to me. A coworker plays the game that I make content for and uses all of my stuff, and I had no clue. Yeah, it was, so I won't go into super much detail, but basically one of my students was listening to audiobooks and had no idea it was me. And then I did one of these live streams, and here's my face. And they went, I know that guy. And so, yeah, it's kind of fun. Could you name any book you read and were excited to get to the ending, to get the answers, and then discover the story ended with a dud? For me, any of Dan Brown's books. Interesting. I really like the Dan Brown movie versions of his books. Books that ended with a dud. I'm looking through my list of things at the moment. Give me a sec here. Sorry for sitting on dead air. I'm just looking around at my series. The one that I don't think is bad, but I didn't personally like the ending. I thought it was slightly anticlimactic for what I wanted it to be, is probably Among the Free, which is the 7th book in the Shadow Children series. Among the Free is so weird in terms of the climax of the series really comes in book 6. And I'm not saying that that's just because like the population police fall in book 6 and there isn't really anything after that. It's the fact that in book 7, there really isn't a clear villain and the pacing is off compared to the rest of this series. It's practically one location. It's a lot of talking and a lot of drama that wasn't necessarily the way it was in the previous 6 books. I don't know. I enjoyed all of the other books more than I liked Among the Free. Disciple of Lord Dionysus says, right now, Artemis Fowl Book 2 is my favorite book. I do enjoy the Arctic incident. Yasin Yafi says, gotta give the missus what she wants. Yes, I do. I do try to give my wife what she likes. Expogo Sam says, would honestly probably listen to Twilight. Thought the first movie was really fun when it was still kind of indie. The first Twilight movie is a very, very interesting movie. For a variety of reasons. In terms of just the creative decisions made on that movie are fascinating. Especially compared to the rest of the series. But yeah, it's a fun movie. The fun, not even quite ironically. It's just a very interesting movie. If you're into filmmaking and that sort of thing. Expogo Sam says, would honestly probably I just read that, my bad. Yes, and Yafi says, so far, what is your favorite book in the inheritance cycle? Good question. I think far and away Eldest. I understand the criticism Eldest has in it being too long. I believe it's the longest in the series. So the difference between what makes Aragon and Brysinger boring compared to Eldest, all of the books have middle sections that are just slogs to get through. That's the problem with Inheritance Cycle, is they're too long, there's too much in there that doesn't need to be there, and the middle sections are really, really boring. I think what makes Eldest superior to the other two, for a variety of reasons, is the locations are really fun. Everything we see with the journey of Aragon, the kind of follow-up journey to what Aragon did in the first book by his cousin Rorin, and then everything politically going on with Serta and the Varden, helps to shake up the middle section enough. Plus, we get the multiple viewpoints. That's what's really nice. Specifically, what's going on with Aragon is interlaced with what's going on with Rorin. And as much as I love the locations that Aragon visits, like I love everything that happens in Duvelden Varden, but I think Rorin's story is easily the best part of Eldest. And then the climax is very, very good. Very, very well written. I think the final few chapters of Eldest are probably the best of anything in the series. So yeah, I think Eldest for me, for sure. I've never read the other two. I've never read Inheritance or Murtagh. Six's Dragon says, hey, I'm back. Remember a while ago I mentioned making a book cover design for your book. I sent it to you by email, but I never heard back from you, so I don't know if you saw it. I did not see it. If you wouldn't mind I'm not sure which email you sent it to. So if you wouldn't mind clarifying where you sent it to, or if you want to DM me directly either on Patreon or on Discord, that would be awesome. Expogo Sam says, watched a handful of truly okay movies this summer. The Menu and The Gorge. Thought they were fun, but don't feel compelled to rewatch. Any movies you recommend or are looking forward to? Movies that I would recommend. Depends how far back you want to go. I'm not sure what your timeline is, if you're talking recent movies or if you're talking just in general. Movies that I'm looking forward to personally. Obviously, the two that I was really looking forward to are already out. The two major comic book movies that came out in the last month. But in terms of what is coming up that I'm really looking forward to, cautiously curious about Avengers 5. I really like Millie Alcock, so I'm looking forward to Supergirl. Problem is, right now, I just don't know what's coming out. I feel like movies are in a weird place where the only time I ever see trailers for movies are like occasionally on YouTube. And then if I happen to go to the theater and see an advertisement, there's a movie, lost my train of thought there. I was going to say the one that really comes to mind is Christopher Nolan's Odyssey that's coming out next year, I believe. That's probably the movie I'm looking forward to most, or Dune Messiah. Very curious to see how they'll make Dune Messiah into a movie. Kylito's Corner says, I've heard a lot of good things about Primitive War, which is based on a book. I don't know that one. I'll have to check it out. Disciple of Lord Dionysus says, which Artemis Fowl book is your favorite? I've only read the first two, so I don't know. Expogo Sam says, I watched Pacific Rim. That was not in the list of okay movies. That was spectacular. Yeah, if we're going back a distance, I would say anything by Denis Villeneuve is really, really solid on my list. Other directors I've been getting into recently. I'm a big Bong Joon-ho fan, if you're into South Korean movies. Trying to think here. Aronofsky's hit or miss. If you're into biblical allegories, I would say Mother is an interesting watch. I'm not a huge Tarantino fan. I have seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood probably 10 times. I watched it 3 times in the theaters. That's how much I liked it. I like Nolan a lot. Nolan is probably my favorite director, but I will say this. There is a fatigue that comes over me if I watch too many Nolan movies in a row. As opposed to, I don't get that with Villeneuve. Alfonso Cuarón is really solid. I don't love all of his movies, but I always love the way that they look. Yeah, it's a good question. Let's go to a question from Heather Moore, who says, what happened to your other channel? Was listening to Divergent and can't find it. It was taken down because of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, as weird as that sounds. So that's where the original Echo Wirm channel went. But we still have this one, and nothing on the channel here should have copyrighted content that will get our channel taken down. Yasin Yafi says, in the third book, Aragon's cousin starts to seem invincible. Excuse me. It's almost like Christopher wrote him to look overpowered, and that took me out of the third book for a little while. Yeah, the third book's a weird one. I don't really know how to describe my thoughts on Brysinger yet. Beyond the fact that I completely agree with you. I think Roran becomes really, really boring when he's not in charge. And I think Christopher is trying to fix that stagnation of his character by making him either less likable because of decisions that he's making or overpowered. Like at one point he kills like 150 people in a single battle. And yeah, I completely agree with you. I have a lot of other issues with Brysinger, but yeah, that's one of them. Carlito's Corner says, Primitive War is a story about a team of soldiers in Vietnam in 1968 looking for their missing squad to find themselves being attacked by dinosaurs. I have seen commercials for that. Sean Chandler did a review of that, and I think he said it was a lot of fun. Disciple of Lord Dionysus says, I am in book 4 in Artemis Fowl. Like I said, I've never read past book 2, so I'm very curious to see what I think of book 3. Do you think that there's a chance that you would be interested in getting into the Wheel of Time at some point? It's on my list. Expogo Sam says, spinning off from overhyped / exhausting directors, what are some well-regarded songs that you can't stand? I can't listen to Bohemian Rhapsody or Welcome to the Black Parade. I can't sympathize with you on those choices, but songs I can't stand. Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of 80s songs that I really can't stand, and I know that sounds really, really bad. Because yes, I agree that there's something about the 80s that just stands out above all the rest. But there are a lot of 80s songs I just can't stand. This is going to sound like it comes from a bad place, and I don't mean it to. This is by no means a cultural thing. Late 90s, early 2000s R&B, simply for the sake of there is a triangle cymbal sound in almost every single one of them. I'm talking like very early Usher, some of Destiny's Child. Like, I don't know what it is or who was producing at the time, but there is like this specific sound in the percussion that the frequency just, I can't do it. Like, it quite literally gives me a headache. So I can't do Mariah Carey. I can't, simply for the production. I don't know about overhyped songs. That's a really good question. Jason Mraz. That's my answer. Anything by Jason Mraz. Carlito's Corner says Sean Chandler is awesome. Yeah, Sean is one of the... I've been following Sean since he had about probably less than 5,000 subscribers. I don't know what he's at now. I'm guessing somewhere in the 500,000 to 600,000. But yeah, Sean is someone I look up to for a variety of reasons. He was one of the earliest YouTubers that really got me to think about starting my own YouTube channel. He kind of sparked an interest in film critique for me. And just his own backstory is... He's a bit older than I am, but his own backstory is very, very similar to mine in a lot of ways. And so I respect him a lot for that. So I used to be a member of his Patreon. I don't know if he remembers who I am, but... Yasin Yafi says, it also feels as if Aragorn took too long to get his sword. Yeah, the sword drama is... To me, it's like... I don't know. It almost feels like with the third book, Christopher realized how much he was ripping off of like the Hero's Journey trilogy. So for example, people always say that like Aragon just feels like Star Wars with dragons. And there's a lot of truth to that. Like if you look at the second book, at the end of the second book, it's not the same as Darth Vader as Luke's father, but there's a plot twist that is very, very similar. And with the third book, it almost feels like Christopher realized that and was sick of the criticism and decided to extend the story so it was a quadrilogy instead of a trilogy. And for that reason, like, there's a lot that you could just cut out of the entire series and it wouldn't make a huge difference. Like, the biggest things that happen in book 3 have either already happened in certain ways or are backtracking what happened in the previous books. And it feels really insubstantive, other than like the major death that happens at the end of the book. But beyond that, like, that could have happened at the beginning of book 4, if that makes any sense. If you were to cut book 3 and make book 4 then the end of a trilogy. So I completely agree. Aliyah S89 says, located in Phoenix, Arizona, followed for years. You are fantastic. Well, thank you very much. My wife went to school in Phoenix. My dad actually lives in Phoenix. Who would win in a fight? Artemis Fowl versus Harry Potter or Percy Jackson. You got to remember, when you add Percy Jackson to the mix of anything, you are adding deity powers. Artemis Fowl has a lot of money and control of a magic that is probably significantly lesser than exists in Harry Potter. So I would say Artemis Fowl is like, it'd be like Batman versus Superman. Under the right circumstances, maybe, but in a fair fight, like, Harry Potter is smoking him out of the water every day. And then you add Percy Jackson to the mix, you add godly powers to the mix. It doesn't even come close, in my opinion, based on how I'm looking at this story. Oni Shootin' Doji says, I was listening to Chalice of the Gods. What happened? It should be coming up on the channel very, very shortly. It is currently available over on Patreon and Vimeo for free. If you check out the links in our channel bio, you should be able to find them there. Holy moly. Teams will take the field at 11:30. It's a heck of a rain delay. I'm watching football as I do this. We'll probably go for another 10 minutes if you guys are interested. Let's go to a question from Patreon. I wanted to go over on Patreon and give some shout outs to my people there. First of all, just give a shout out to my top tier Patreons. The champion tier, that is everybody who gives $25 a month or more. And the special thing about my champion tier is, if you're a member, I give you a free book every single month. So for no extra cost other than joining that $25 a month or more tier, I give you a free copy of whatever we are covering as a daily chapter book over on Patreon. I send it, if you're willing to give me your mailing address, I send you a free copy of a book at the beginning of every month for no extra cost other than just being a member of that tier. So I want to give a shout out to John Buck, Donald Easter, Dalton Bailey, Lydia Bryant, Zhukov Crawford, Joseph Morrill, and Set, as well as my League One tier members. Those are all the people that give $15 a month or more. Sea of Addicts, Trent Skeen, Robin Chamberlain, Michael Wang, and Log. And my League 2 tier members, that is $10 a month or more. That just gets you on this little placard that shows up at the end of every chapter and every audiobook. Gage Sanders, Brandon Doty, Sailor Ann Cross, Hessa, Rockin' Ryan 99, X-Ray, Rania, Katie Rose, Knickerdoodles, Jared Parnell, Suzanne William James, Mr. Taper, Dakota Wild, Dixie Normus, and Anonymous Astro. Of course, also a huge shout out to everyone who is a paying member over on Patreon. Like I said, these are just the people that go above and beyond. You can join for free and get plenty of stuff over there for free, patreon.com/EchoWorm, or you can join to get stuff in advance of the channel by just $5 a month or more. Also, I don't have links to it, never mind. Eventually, we'll get links back on this channel, and I will show you my merchandise page. But going back to Patreon questions, let's go to a question from Henva Veltro, who says, is there a way to make a playlist on Patreon? With some of the books here having chapters out of order, I will not be able to focus on it. I'm not sure what you mean by chapters out of order. I know when I upload daily chapters over on Patreon, sometimes they do show up in the wrong order. That should be corrected within the week, typically. I don't think there's a way for people to make playlists on Patreon, but of course, if you're on my channel, I should have everything in a playlist, typically in order as well. Savannah Patterson says, is there an ETA on the next Maze Runner book? Currently, we're doing daily chapters of the Scorch Trials. It should be up for non-paying members in about a month or two. Michaela Sabaris says, I'm new to Patreon, just wondering, are there any books which are only available through subscription? Everything that is available for my paying members will eventually be available for everyone to everyone for free. Right now, the only things that are in advance for paid members are Book 2 of Magnus Chase, as well as Part 2 of Brysinger and The Scorch Trials. And they're ahead by about a month and a half. Savannah Patterson also asks, are you doing more Goosebumps? After listening to The Ghost Next Door, I realized how bad I missed out growing up. Yeah, my plan is to have another Goosebumps book out for Halloween. I think the next one I'm going to do is Say Cheese or Die. There's like 60 Goosebumps books. I'm not going to get to all of them, but I did one for last Halloween, and I'll probably do one for this Halloween as well. Let's go to a question from Alex Easley, who says, how do you download the Heroes of Olympus books? That is something you can do if you're a paying member over on Patreon. I'll reach out to you directly if you reach out to me through like the general chats. I just need a Gmail to send that to. I do want to address there's an issue on Patreon at the moment. I think it's 10 videos. I don't know if it's the case on the online version, but on the mobile app for Patreon, there is an error at the moment where if you go to a playlist, you're only able to see like 10 chapters. So if you're looking for if you go to the Heroes of Olympus playlist and you're looking for part 2 of Blood of Olympus and can't find it, it is available on Patreon. I think what you have to do on the app at the moment before they fix it is to just search on the channel Blood of Olympus, and you should be able to find part 2 because it is available. It is available for free. It is in the playlist. It just looks like there's an error there. Matt Zucker says, dang, I got here late. Well, welcome to the chat. You're always welcome to ask questions if there's something you're curious about. Xpogo Sam says, I haven't seen a bottle of Propel since I was 6. Thank you. I like flavored water. I'm sorry. Courtney Sanfilippo says, not sure if it was announced or anything, but are we going to get the final book of the Inheritance Cycle? My daughter loves listening to the Dragon story. Redstone doubles and says, I'd also like to know, I really liked the Inheritance Cycle. Yeah, so we just finished the 3rd book over on Patreon. Right now, we are doing a little interlude of the Scorch Trials. Then we will finish the Divergent series. The 3rd book will be up after we're done with Scorch Trials. And then after we're done with the Divergent series, then we will finish the 4th book of the Inheritance Cycle. So should start on Patreon sometime in a couple months here. Kylito's Corner says, I drink Propel. Watermelon is a goated flavor. I don't know if I can agree with you there. I'm not a huge watermelon fan when it comes to water. But to each their own. Charlize Theron. Probably wrap things up here in about 5 minutes. If there's anything you guys are curious about or want answered in the chat tonight, feel free to drop it real quick, and we'll chat about whatever you guys like for as long as you like. Otherwise, we'll wrap things up here. Brooklyn asks, can you do the Blood of Hercules, please? I don't know if I'm familiar with the Blood of Hercules. I've seen a couple people asking about it. I'll have to check it out and see if it's something worth adding to my list. At the moment, I have no plans to. Xpogo Sam says, genuinely thought it wasn't a thing anymore. I haven't seen a bottle of it in ages. I loved the grape flavor when I was a kid. I like grape. I think berry's my favorite, though. I think I'm drinking berry right now. Can't stand any watermelon flavored drink. I'll never forgive Red Bull for taking away cranberry and replacing it with watermelon. I don't know what it is. I agree with you. Something about watermelon flavored beverages I'm just not a fan of. I don't mind watermelon flavored toothpaste. It's very nostalgic for me. The Colgate Kids toothpaste. My son has some of it, and he I don't know if any of you have kids, but sometimes my son will shove his toothbrush at me, and has successfully got it in my mouth a few times. And the only time I don't absolutely hate it is if he has his watermelon toothpaste. Dragon Puppet says, what is your email? You should be able to send it to echowyrm, that's worm with an I, at gmail.com. If you guys ever have requests or anything you want to reach out to me personally, that is the email that you can reach out to, echowyrm at gmail.com. Worm spelled with an I. Kylito's Corner says, orange anything is my favorite as far as drinks. I don't know that Propel makes an orange flavor. Matt Zucker says, how long can you read aloud before your voice gives out? What is the longest you've ever read aloud in one sitting? Longest I've ever read in a single sitting was when I recorded Wrath of the Triple Goddess last year in a single sitting. It took me 12 hours to make an 8-hour audiobook. I basically bought the book when Barnes & Noble opened at 10 a.m. I had it finished by 10 p.m. Yeah, it was hell. My voice was shot the next day. The answer honestly depends on how busy I am in my regular job. I've mentioned before, I'm a professional musician, so I'm constantly using my voice anyways. So typically what I'm able to do with audiobooks is kind of dependent on either how much my voice is shot from my day job or how much I expect my voice to be needed for my day job. So yeah, it really depends. It's kind of a seesaw. Excuse me. I went to Culver's for dinner, and I'm lactose intolerant. Expogo Sam says, cranberry used to be the red edition. They replaced it with watermelon when there was already a green edition that was kiwi strawberry that nobody ever drank. They could have just swapped that one. I don't know. I think kiwi strawberry is underrated. It's not a very popular flavor, but I do actually enjoy kiwi strawberry flavored beverages. Disciple of Lord Dionysus says, for me, Percy Jackson versus Jace Herondale would be more interesting because both are divine, but two different types. Percy with pagan god bloodline and Jace with angel's bloodline. It's an interesting, I've never considered those two in the same room before, to be honest with you. All right, with that being said, we have crossed the 1 hour mark. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I have no idea when the next live stream will be, so stay tuned. Hopefully I'll announce it in advance of doing something like this, just so, not everybody's caught off guard the way they typically have been with me lately. I think we'll plan for one next Thursday in the afternoon. I'll let you know if that changes. Otherwise, stay tuned for more news, stay tuned for more audiobooks, and we'll hope to see you back here very, very soon.